Hello everybody, BMI here today with a slightly different meta report than usual. So today we're doing it over video. This is for the final expansion of Shadowverse, and so this is just before the final RAGE tournament and also the final Shadowverse Open. Now this time both of the tournaments will be 3-deck zero-bound format, and these are the decks that you are very likely to see in those tournaments. So let's get started. First of all, we've got Wrathblood. So this is ever popular, ever consistent, very successful deck. If you haven't seen it already, it's a strong kind of mid-range aggro deck with a lot of burn. If you have Chaotic Chimera, it just does 6 AoE damage, plus it draws you 3 cards, and your opponent will usually die quite quickly. The main strength of this deck is that it doesn't have too many specific weaknesses in the format. I mean, apart from like Natura's Sword and Ladika Forest in particular, every other matchup you're either like, slightly favored, slightly unfavored, but nothing that really like demolishes you, right? It's a very fundamentally sound deck. And that's why I keep seeing play, even though it's being cannibalized a little bit by Milnard Blood, so also known as Under 10 Blood. So that deck, basically the key component is you want to go under 10 cards. It enhances the effects of your followers and your spells, and then essentially it can use cards like Lawful Evil to protect itself to set up for combo. It can also OTK you through triple Milnard. It can OTK you through double Milnard, Case Cracked, which gets rid of all wards. If you have the leader effect that does 3 damage plus a 1 damage ping, so that can either be because you evolve the 2 play point Machina follower, or because you have the 1 play point 1 damage storm. But this deck is very consistent. It's been seeing a lot of play, and it has a pretty good matchup spread, I would say. Like decks which can get board locked, so specifically Amulet Haven, have a pretty tough time against Milnard Blood in particular. So yeah, this deck is definitely very strong, and we're going to see this a lot. It'll be interesting to see, which one will be more popular between Milnard Blood and Wrathblood. It's usually Wrathblood, but Milnard has a very dedicated player base, and it has won a lot of tournaments. I think even amongst competitive players, it's not like clear-cut which one is the better deck out of the two. The next deck is Artifact Portal. So this deck is extremely popular right now. So there's a new build going around. If you haven't seen it already, basically they cut the Laser Tyranny card that does like 2 damage to enemy leader. Instead, they're now running 3 copies of Homunculus. So that's a card which puts 2 analyzing into the deck, and then you can get a random artifact from your deck back to your hand. So essentially, like, it plays very similarly to before. So you get your Agile online, you get your Rhinos online, and then eventually you go for an OTK turn where you either spam a huge amount of Rhinos, Radiant Artifacts, and then use Dying to finish off 10. It also has access to the very powerful Post-Apocalyptic Girls, which can be 0 play points, heal 5, and give shield to face. It has a very solid matchup against decks like Amulet Haven and Ram Dragon in particular. With the other decks, it has a bit more of a weird matchup spread, I'd say. I think against Wrathblood it's fine as well. With the current build, I think Wrathblood is slightly favored, but yeah, Artifact Portal is a very solid deck. And it's seeing a lot of play, and so it should. The next deck to cover is Amulet Haven. So this deck, extremely powerful, extremely consistent. Basically, the key component is it revolves around a card basically called Selena. So that card, once you get it online, you evolve it, you get 2 of the 1 play point spells. That's 8 damage, and then basically you combo that with True Key. So True Key does 2 damage for each amulet that gets destroyed, like when you destroy with a spell. So that's 12 damage, and then you can potentially kill them with, let's say, if you have Bird, the Regal Falcon, so that's 5 damage with either, and then you just need to find 3 damage for anything else. So like your 1 play point burn or whatever, if you burn them earlier. And it also has a lot of healing, a lot of staying power in general, and it can kill as early as turn 6, you can get key as early as turn 5, and it's fairly consistent in what it does, and it will eventually kill you. So Amulet Haven, its popularity has decreased a bit, mainly because the decks that are currently in the meta are specifically targeting it, or have like a decent matchup into it. So stuff like Artifact Portal is favored into it, for instance. Milnard Blood, again, can kind of board lock you, and then True Key doesn't do anything to stop you from, stop them from case cracking you and then like killing you directly. But regardless, Amulet Haven's still a very strong deck. Wouldn't be surprised to see it get played in 3-deck zero-bound format, to be perfectly honest. And then the final deck is Machina Runes. So I think this is possibly like one of the most underrated decks that's in tier 1. I think it's because people don't know how to play it. That will be rectified soon because I am publishing a guide for that. So Machina Rune essentially it has extremely consistent turn 6 OTKs, like way more than what should be considered acceptable, to be honest. But either it kills you in turn 6 or turn 7. Most decks don't really have counterplay to it, to be perfectly honest. Like Milnard Blood, like that's probably the only deck because they run Lawful Evil. I don't think any of the other decks in the tier 1 category have any actual answers to turn 6 OTK. And of these decks in particular, like I think Artifact Portal and Amulet Haven have like a really bad time against this deck. Wrathblood's okay because you can potentially just aggro them down before turn 6. Milnard Blood, like I think Milnard Blood is good because of Lawful Evil, but yeah, this deck is just great against everything else. I think in a 3-deck 0-ban format, you're probably trolling if you don't play Machina Rune. I gotta be real. Okay, so tier 2, Natural Sword. This deck is just okay, so this deck has like a really high conversion rate in general, and so I think it's mainly there because it's got a very good matchup against Wrathblood, which is still quite popular. I think it's a pretty bad one against Amulet Haven, and I don't think it's good against Artifact Portal either, but we do see this top like pretty much every JCG, even though it doesn't make particularly deep runs in general. Arctic Forest is another one, so it's got a great match against Wrathblood. It's got a pretty bad one against Amulet Haven. And then against the other decks, it sort of depends. I think they have a good matchup against Artifact Portal. I think against Machina Rune, it's dependent on if you go first or second. And then Milnard Blood, that deck is, I think, I'm not too sure about this matchup actually. Not too sure. I won't comment on it because I don't actually know the answer to that one. But yeah, we'll probably see some amount of Atlantic Forest. I think the deck's slept on a little bit. I tested it a bit. Seems strong. I just didn't want to bring it because I didn't think it was good into Amulet Haven. But apart from that, like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And it's got 2 builds, Pure Latica, and it's got the Iris Latica version as well. So they have their different strengths. If you run Iris, you can beat Amulet Haven. Okay, and then Ramp Dragon. So it's a big dragon. So this one is like one of the decks which has a bit of a lopsided curve, like in terms of the matchups. So I would say that, you know, this deck is surprisingly bad against decks like Artifact Portal. I think it's bad against Wrath as well. But I think it has a unique value proposition in the fact that it can ramp to 10 very quickly. And against certain decks, like, for example, it's one of the only decks that can actually stop Machina Rune from killing on turn 6. Like, I've seen the games where, like, the Machina Rune player has, like, full combo, but they can't play it because the Ramp Dragon player is already threatening either lethal, or they play Venomous, and +2 cost everything, and then Machina Rune player can't play. Even if they somehow manage to clear the board, like, they usually have to expend a combo piece or something to do it, and it's really tough. Also, Ramp Dragon's like one of the only classes where they can drop multiple big guys, they can turn 7, play the Relic Roomworm, whatever, and then, like, if they hit, like, a big follower, that's game over too. So, yeah, I think Ramp Dragon definitely, it's not the worst. I think in terms of tier 2 decks, like, it's playable, especially into what I think the final format will be. Okay, so moving into tier 3, so these are decks that we really don't see much of. You might see a bunch of them on ladder a lot more often, so Last Word Shadow in particular. So this one, like, you see it all the time on ladder. It's not really played in tournament play usually. Natural Dragon, this one is not played as much because Ramp Dragon has kind of taken control over the dragon class, shall we say. But it's still good against Wrath Dragon. Wrathblood. But I think it's a little bit too slow to deal with decks like Machina Rune and U10. I mean, obviously it's fine if you can reach 10 trees destroyed, but it's not that easy to reach 10 trees destroyed, to be perfectly honest about it. I think the deck was good. I think it was really good pre-mini expansion, but now just fallen a little bit behind. Evolved Blood, so mono. This deck is still good, I think. There's just no reason to play it because Milnard and Wrathblood are just better. Even though, to be perfectly honest, you can still play the deck. I just don't know what the value proposition is. And then other swords, so I mean, we really should reclassify this, but it's basically just the Evo deck, like the one where you evolve a lot, and then you basically play like Weiss or Gordia and all of that type of stuff. So like it's more of a control deck, but it's so like clunky. That's the issue with this deck. It's so clunky, and I don't think like its matchup spread like it's actually okay, but it's like very like lopsided. I think like basically against like the OTK decks, you can get like a good matchup into them, but sometimes you'll brick, and sometimes like your pieces don't come together in the right way. Wouldn't be surprised to see if anyone like perfected the deck list, but yeah, so definitely tier 3 deck. We're not likely to see many of this, like probably like one tops. And then we got Machina Shadow. So this deck, it's tier 4 in the it's tier 4 in like the Japanese meta. But actually seen quite a lot of like play in the Western meta. So in the SVOs in particular, like Machina Shadow has seen like some pretty good tops. I think it's mainly because like you've got the ban option. So you can kind of tailor your matchup specifically. Specifically, so this deck is like a higher performer, but yeah, I mean, it's hardly played in Japanese format, I have to say. And then same with Evolve Haven. Like, oh, actually, like Evolve Haven is just garbage. Like, I'm gonna be real. It's like completely a ladder deck. You can play it, but like it just gets destroyed by like low decks. Like, for instance, like it dies to turn 6 Machina Rune. Like Wrathblood can just kill it outright. Artifact Portal doesn't care at all. Like you can never kill Artifact Portal. And then like Amulet Haven as well. Like surprisingly, that matchup is like extremely Amulet Haven favored. Milnar Blood, I think even would win this matchup if it's piloted correctly. The deck is just too predictable in terms of what it does, and pretty much every meta deck beats it. So that's pretty much it for like the meta breakdown. These are the decks that you're going to see in SVO and also for Rage. I think it's pretty unlikely we're going to see anyone cook anything other than these. We would have almost certainly seen it by now. But yeah, that's it for the final expansion of Shadowverse. Hope it's helpful to anyone who's still grinding either tournaments or for ladder to get the final GM. See you guys next time. Make sure to like and subscribe. More content coming soon.